at you from New Jersey, the capital of misery, the place where metal forgot to die.
This is the Here Lies Metal, Too Many Notes, New Music Review. I am Samantha R.
And I am Maledictus, and we shall be your overlords for today in all of eternity. So today we're doing a review, again, believe it or not, and the band is called Homeskin with their album, his album, sorry. All right, hold on a bit. Integument Crystallization. That wasn't that hard.
Homeskin is a black metal project emerged just last year in 2021 from the mind of GB, aka Gary, who you may know from Caranier, Gone Mage, and Salamoth, and many other frightening projects. This guy's so prolific that in the space of me deciding to review this album, and today when we're recording, he released another album for Homeskin called Cries Methodically. So we'll try to include a little note about that one at the end. But Integument Crystallization is the debut full-length. It followed up to two 2021 EPs, and it came out on Bandcamp on January 21st.
All right. And with that, now it is time for the Here Lies Metal 5-point bi-directional classification scale, including the categories genre loyalty, listenability, production style, music complexity, and just plain fun. And remember, once again, neither side of these scales mean good or bad. They're all good. So what do we have first? We have true or nonconformists. What do we have going on here?
So for black metal, is this true black metal? We're going to say no. We're going to get a 4 for nonconformist. The black metal elements, we've got some traditional black metal riffs here and there, particularly maybe on track 2. And we've got mostly screaming black metal vocal. There were some hints at some points of what I would almost call an 80s new wave vocal, but mostly shrieking, I'm in pain and suffering, black metal kind of vocal. Now, other than that, we're taking a lot of departures from black metal. You know, what might have been tremolo picking in a more normal album is more like a droning buzz. There are some melodic elements, but they're all being kind of run through this like squeeze box that is very sanity distorting, and there's a lot of discordance, and it almost sounds off key a lot of the time. I'm not a big fan of dissonance, but I find the dissonance used on this kind of tasteful and interesting as opposed to just trying to harm your brain.
It is art.
Although this is a very harmful album for your brain, but it's not too harmful. But on the whole, yes, this is like a warped, disturbed reflection of black metal. Black metal's looking in the mirror, and it's not seeing what it knows, But yeah, and there's almost something kind of in the choice of sounds that reminds me, this might be way out of left field, but kind of like more like 2000s like indie music. Especially kind of like there's a lot of in the reprise when like the guitar and drums cut away and the kind of like more ambient sections and this kind of old-timey organ sound that I don't know, it's kind of just a weird feel, just of like an indie sensibility. Just yeah, especially when the black metal like guitar and the blast beats cut away. But I'm not going to give it all the way. I'm not going to give it a 5 for nonconformist, even though we're way out of left field on black metal, because I can think of maybe one or two other artists, namely like Yellow Eyes, doing something similar. But again, Yellow Eyes is definitely not a nonconformist band, are definitely not a true band. So we're definitely getting a very high score for nonconformists.
Is this sonic terror or is this distorted pop?
So, as you may have gathered from what we just described, I'm going to give this a 1.5 for Sonic Terror. But you notice it's not a 1. And because this could be worse. I mean, there is a lot of noise, a lot of chaos, discordant
could be
notes.
Better for some.
Maybe you want more Sonic Terror, and the shrieking is a sound of someone being burned alive, but I mean, it's not relentless with all of that chaos. I mean, the drums and guitar, as I mentioned, will cut away. The mix will become less dense, and you get a chance to recover and to emotionally, gather yourself for the next assault. Track 3 in particular has like a victory parade march. It's very joyous, although kind of not also, because even on those nice parts, the whole thing is still kind of just discomforting and kind of unease. like almost like a comically horrifying kind of unease. Like I feel like it's the feeling of watching like a Harmony Korine film. We're gonna just drop some names here. But also just structurally, the album is 28 minutes long, which is good. But it's only 4 songs, so it's 4 long songs. And suffice to say, you're not going to get anything like a conventional song structure that will comfort you. When listening, I typically entered kind of like a trance, and the whole thing just kind of like blurs into like one experience. But again, I'm not going to give it a full 1 because I'm like, it's not like, I don't think this is a punishing album where you're not supposed to enjoy it. But it also isn't supposed to please you or to be pleasurable. This album is just to be witnessed. You must witness it. What did you think, Maledict?
I expected more Sonic Terror than advertised. When a band like this, I'm like, this is going to be total Sonic Terror. It's going to be 1 on the Sonic Terror. But nah, I would actually give it even, like, I would even give it almost like a 2. But there's some notes and chords and structure among this musical hellscape that he made, believe it or not. I mean, the chords are kind of in it, they don't really follow the rules of music, whatever the fuck that means. But, the rules of pleasant sounding music, I suppose. There's no real rules, are they? But also, the Sonic, and also the next topic, the next category will also, I think, take a little bit of points away from Sonic Terror for me.
The next category is our production scale of Fisher-Price to high production.
Yeah.
Maledictus, what do we got?
So I got to give this a 3. And it's like, whoa, this a 3? And yes. And here's why. Despite this being a home recording, and that doesn't mean it should be bad. Some people know how to use their stuff. Some people don't. This guy does. It's really good production. For the limited quality and resources one might have in their software suite, in their basement. Why do I assume it's in a basement? Could be in his living room. This album makes the most of it, and our artist here makes the most of it. So he's professional. Also, I'd like to thank the maker for specifically publishing the production details of his gear used in intricate detail. I love when people do that. Small acts of kindness like this give gear and audio snobs and nerds like myself so much satisfaction. So I thank you for that. So let's talk about that for a second here. And all you non-gear nerds, you tune out right now, and you're like boring. But
put a marker in this video.
Yeah.
Get past the gear section.
A little trigger warning. It's some pretty good stuff used here as advertised. So I don't think we're like, that kind of takes me out of the Fisher-Price realm a little bit here. We're using, he's using, first of all, he's very specific about his microphone, which, I'm like, oh, most people don't really talk about their microphones, but he's got like the best microphone. He's using the SM7. Now, if you don't know what the SM7 is, if you ever watched a podcast of any podcaster that makes money, unlike me, I don't have an SM7 here, because I will never have an SM7 here because, we don't make money. So I'm going to use this mic forever. When I make $1, I'm going to buy an SM7. But until then, that's a good mic. So that's a great mic, for podcasting, for vocals. It's a dynamic mic. It's a great mic. It's the best mic. So that's something right there. For his amps, he's talking about using profiles. I'm assuming those are Kemper or Axe Effects profiles. I'm not too familiar with that system, but that's kind of a high-end system there. And gear nerds either like love them or hate them. I know like a lot of pedal nerds hate those things, but a lot of like studio guys love those things. I don't know. Never used one, so I can't tell you. But, in drums, of course, using ergotone samples, which are great. They're cheap and great samples. They sound great. They could give you sounds from like high production metal to like grindcore, like whatever you want. And they're nice and cheap, easy interface, great sound. I've heard of a lot of home recording people using them.
We're not sponsored.
I am not sponsoring the ergotone guys, by the way. I do use them myself, but I'm not in any way. They're not paying me in any way. And finally, what the favorite part is those soft synth, and I as you mentioned, that's a soft synth, that's a software synth, a sort of an organ sound, and because obviously that's for home recording, that's kind of a necessity, as real synths, retro synths, cost more than a Porsche these days. I'm being literal about that. So that's kind of cool, and that's my favorite part of this album. It almost sounds like a horror organ or something, and that really sounds cool to me. You did a really good job at that, and that kind of sounds really grindy, and I like that sound. And I think it sounds pretty good for a home recording. So awesome, very awesome.
I do think he was going for a raw sound, though, so I would want to put this on the Fisher Price end just a little bit.
Yeah, I thought it sounded good.
Like, it's not saying that he used shitty gear, but that he was going for a dirty, raw sound, especially with the black metal elements.
Yeah, I don't like it. Like sounded, like the organ sounded nice and raw, and that was good. Some parts of it, but I think and I noticed he used profiles on his guitar thing to make it kind of sound raw. But I think it all came together really well and very clear. Like I can hear everything.
Yeah, you can hear everything.
Next we have not enough notes or too many notes. Now we just recently changed it to not enough notes instead of enough notes. Not enough notes, or it should be.
That does not matter. No one cares.
That doesn't matter. But anyway, what is it? What is it though?
We're going to get a 4 in the too many notes side. Not because he's pulling off any crazy solos or really. It's more just the mastery of construction and composition on this thing. There's just so many layers and so many sounds happening. And you can just tell that a lot of thought went into how, every element, where every element should go and how it should sound and what effects should be on what. And it's almost an achievement that it's not completely overwhelming, just, how much, sounds are coming at you on this album. So, yeah, that's a lot of notes.
Yeah, there's a lot of notes going on. Not all of these notes sound pleasing together, used in the same measure. But that's not for you to decide, is it? So like song 3, Crystalline, kind of sounds like a song with chords and stuff, as I mentioned before. Despite like all the chaos, I call this record jazz. Okay, it's jazz.
Jazz.
It's not grindcore. Or anything like that. It's a form of jazz to me, and it reminds me of. Usually jazz kind of has solos and stuff. It's kind of a free form kind of thing, and and that's what it is to me. It's like you said, it was improvised, right? It was a lot of it's improvised. Is that true?
The vocals was improvised.
So that's jazz right there. Jazz involves improvisation. That's one thing.
Improvised black metal is jazz.
That is one of the foundations of jazz is improvisation. So I think we're on that path here. Okay.
Okay.
Next, we have the big question, as always: is it fun or is it focused? What is it?
Well, yeah, we're gonna get a 4.5 for focused. We've mentioned a lot of talking about, horrifying shrieking and discordant sounds and just pain and chaos. So this album, it's not about having a good time. Again, I don't think it's trying to harm you. I think it's just a serious thing. It's about bad things, this album. And if you were wondering about the title, Integument, I didn't know what that meant, but I looked it up, and it is a tough outer protective layer, especially that of an animal or plant. And you and I and everyone has an integumentary system, which is just all the layers of the skin, hair, dermis, epidermis, hypodermis, etc. Just that whole system that is protecting you. And so for the album title, imagine that all crystallizing.
I don't know if my skin is that integumental.
That doesn't sound like a fun process.
Yeah, you could.
The only reason I'm not going to go a 5 for focus is just because I mentioned that Victory March and some kind of some of those melodic elements, they're all kind of off key and weird, but they are often sometimes in a major scale. Or maybe a weird major scale.
Sometimes for a second, but then he goes off that scale.
Or they're okay.
It's like when I'm playing keyboard and I hit the wrong note. But that's not a bad thing. I'm not making fun of you.
I don't know if you would call those moments nice, but they're interesting and they're maybe a little bit tongue-in-cheek, I feel like. I don't know. But not totally 100% serious.
I think he did it on purpose, whatever is there.
Everything was on purpose.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's kind of like a pangolin, right? It's a skin that's hard, right?
The scales of a pangolin would be part of its integumentary system.
Integumentary. I don't have that. I'm soft.
No, you have one. We all have one.
If I was hit by a hard object, I would probably die. I'm not armored. But yeah, this guy is serious about this. I have no questions about that. If you sit in your basement or your living room, sorry, your recording desk might be in your living room, working on this type of chaos for probably months. No? How long? Wait, how long do we know?
Yes, one moment.
Yeah, I want to know this. That's another question I'm curious about. How long this took to make? Because I take just years to make one song. So, how long did it take you?
It was conceived and produced in approximately 11 hours on January 20 to 21.
I want to know this
And
guy.
then he released it immediately.
I want to know this guy's workflow because it's efficient. If you think there's anything wrong with this album, you're wrong. Okay, this guy understands efficiency and speed, and creativity, and putting it down and keeping it and publishing it. You know, that's a workflow. That's discipline. That's great. This guy's a go-getter. So yeah, he did that in a very short time. Either way, and you know, he probably just keeps making them. But anyway, when you do that and you make an album like this, and that actually even solidifies my point even more that it's focused. There are voices at work here in probably his head, and they're probably legitimate. They're not like fake or anything, and they're beckoning and commanding him to make this album and more albums. So yeah, when you're in that, that's not fun.
Well, as I mentioned, he's already put out another album.
There you go.
I mean, the latest album is only 9 minutes long. This is a full kind of almost 30 minutes full length. But he did call the 9-minute album an album.
Okay. All right. Will we have a do we have a meme for that? I think we do.
We'll put up a meme.
We'll
right
put
here.
that. I'm the meme master. Yeah, and to just keep making and to make a 9-minute song. That's focus, man. That not everyone could do that. So I guess we're done with this part.
We'll look at the album
we
cover
have,
right
we
now.
We have artwork here.
So this is one we don't usually see. We have mainly just a photograph.
All right.
The model's name is Tiffany Britton, and that's the only credit we got on this.
It's just Tiffany Britton.
I see we also have a nice pretty girl here, just kind of giving a dead-eyed stare.
Yeah, dead-eyed stare, right?
Looks like she might be, inside looking out a window.
An empty stare.
She's, Homeskin. I feel like maybe we're talking about things that happen in the home that are bad and might cause you to develop a thick skin and deaden you on the inside.
Is that what a homeskin is?
I have no idea.
I was going to ask what that was. What is a homeskin?
I don't know.
What is a homeskin?
I'm theorizing here. I mean,
in
a way, this does not represent at all what this album sounds like. You know, this album, I mean, obviously you have a beautiful girl on this cover, but this album is a frightening melange of chaos and noise. But, you know, I feel like maybe with that dead-eyed stare, looking out the window here, we kind of maybe get a sense that all this chaos is happening within the mind of this poor girl who's clearly going through some shit.
And she has a little tattoo here on the side of her face, 3 dots. I wonder what that means. I don't know what that means. That probably symbolizes something. So, yes, a very lucid stare into the distance, almost like a 1,000-mile stare out into the outside and the sun. And she's inside, and she's stuck inside.
She's stuck inside, definitely.
Yeah.
She's trapped.
Maybe it's just like, the lockdown pandemic.
She's trapped within her integument crystallization.
Mm-hmm. In your home, in your shelter, your shell, right? So yeah, it's a very deep album cover, even though it's very simple.
Well, we're clearly getting a lot out of it.
I'm getting a lot from this simple picture, as we review. We love reviewing the album covers. I love doing it more than the music itself. Stay tuned for my album cover show. We're here,
all right.
I promise.
And to briefly just discuss his most recent album, Cries Methodically, it's different. I saw him say that one of his inspirations is Buddha's Nord. I'm not really a scholar of that band, but what I know of them, a lot of their albums, they sound very varied and different. And so Cries Methodically does not sound, it's the same bass, but it's a very different kind of album. It's a lot of songs at 9 minutes. It's got more death metal. It's got a couple of death metal elements in there. Grindcore for sure. Screamo at parts. And I took a listen to some of the EPs too that came out last year, and those sounded a bit more traditional black metal, like still kind of weird black metal, but more traditional black metal elements in them. So this is definitely like, if you like, an artist who's exploring a lot within his albums, taking a same basic sound and expanding it in different directions on different releases, this is definitely someone to watch. And if you're familiar with his other work of I feel like everything I've listened to of this guy, of his other projects, is all just like very chaotic, experimental, mind-bending, and frightening in some ways. So this definitely falls within, that ball field there. But yeah, I checked this one out. I actually, I've checked out all of his recent releases, but I think this one's my favorite, so that's why we chose to review it. And it's like riding that line just so perfectly. I feel like of just like extreme harshness, but also still being somewhat approachable and listenable and digestible, but also just kind of pushing you too. So I enjoyed it. I got a lot out of this.
This requires a certain kind of mood. You don't go running to this or relaxing. You have to be in a certain kind of mood for this kind of music. You have to have a very open mind. This kind of music is not for everyone. Some people into more traditional kinds of metal might not be into this kind of free-formedness, but this kind of music has always existed. So, and this is just his version of it. There's really a freedom in music, and there's no rules really. So his is his expression in his own music and his own ideas. So yeah, and I was more impressed in it than I thought I'd be, because I'm not really into noisy stuff usually. But I was like, oh, there's something going on here. There's an idea here. There's a form here, and it's in his own head. I can't get in his head, but that was very impressive. And of course, the idea of him recording this at home, it's such a great result. Is a work of art all by itself.
Yeah, I think this is a good album for someone who's open to stuff like black metal, but doesn't always challenge themselves with their listening, to just try this one on, because it's out there, but it's not so far and the nether reaches that it's alien. Like it's a homeskin.
Homeskin, as he says.
It's something disturbing, but you found it at home, so.
And you recorded it at home. Ha.
Okay. Well, thank you for listening. This has been the Here Lies Metal Too Many Notes New Music Review.
See you next time.
That's all you want to say.
See you next time.
Say something else.
Thank you for listening.
Check us out. Check us out on social media.
Yeah. Be sure to check us out on social media. Make sure you follow Samantha right here on her Twitter. Twitter, is it?
Yes.
Twitter. Yeah, Twitter, right? And sometimes we have things on Instagram, a little picture of you. Follow our social media, Facebook, and all that stuff. What else do we have? We don't have anything else, do we?
Yeah.
And watch the channel, of course, and subscribe to the channel. There you go. So we've been slowly getting subscribers. So there you go. So anyway, thank you for watching. We'll be in another review very soon. Goodbye.